It's a skill that I've developed outside of school. Obviously, I did a lot of reading and writing for school, and I had always lots of mermaid mythology. I've been
Oh,
doing my homework on different cultural interpretations of mermaid lore because there's so many vast different perspectives on it, depending on what country you're looking at. Always a love and an interest in English, and some really great teachers who taught me about the structure of it for writing. So I think I did pursue a facet of it in school. But yes, I was really obsessed with Fablehaven as a kid. It's not as popular, but the books are about this thick.
okay.
So there's two adaptations, right? There's the
Yeah.
movie that came out in 2010, and then there's the TV show that's being made right now. It was a specific scene that got adapted into the show. So I'm less burned about it because I have it now, but I really feel
Really?
like they nailed those in the best way that books could be adapted to screen. That they
Yeah,
will
but
put every single part of the book in there besides meeting the physical descriptions that were put down on the paper. And there's several characters who were at least alluded to be people of color and then were completely washed in the movie. So I didn't read the books, but my sister's a big fan of Twilight and she really lives and dies by those movies. So there must be something there.
they're
Not your
good
cup.
movies.
I did start writing a mystery slash horror book that I wrote. I've been writing, I suppose, for like 8 or 9 years now. So I think what I really like about Egyptian mythology is that
Hey everyone, this is Abhi from No-Budget Filmmaking Podcast, and here with me is Camryn, my wonderful friend, and she wants to say hi.
I,
Okay, Camryn. Uh,
yeah, so my name is Camryn. I'm 26 years old. I'm in the Los Angeles area, and I'm currently involved with a lot of creative projects right now, but primarily writing my first novel.
okay. So my first question is, writing in a sense, just you write the novels, or do you do screenplay and other things as well, or no?
I don't. I've written stories since I was very little, but this is the first novel that I'm trying to get published. So it's a little bit different of an approach because I have to write, an industry standard manuscript, which I've never done before. So there is some more nuance to it than I'm used to. But
Okay, so you touched upon it a little bit, but what made you start? Um, what interested you at first at writing?
I think I have always loved reading to start. My parents read to me a lot when I was little, and my dad loves to write too, and is a very creative person. So I feel like he kind of showed me my way to enjoying writing for leisure, like this graduation from reading books together to falling in love with reading to falling in love with writing. So it felt like a kind of natural progression that was born of a love of reading and writing stories. And then I wanted to write my own.
Okay, what did you read at first?
A lot of fantasy. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big Percy Jackson fan. So those were like the first books that really opened my mind to reading for fun and also reading about fantasy and Greek mythology. So at that point, I got really interested in mythology and just wanted to keep reading about that.
Okay, but okay, I'll ask you about the movies later. But apart from that, how did your taste changed?
I would say I actually don't know if it has changed a ton because I still am really invested in mythology, pretty much world mythologies, any books about, Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, I'll read them all. But I think that my taste has changed a little bit more towards older books. I've started reading books from like the 1600s, like from the 17th century to like the 19th century. I've been reading those a lot more. So
Any honorable mentions?
I mean, Jane Austen is a longtime favorite of mine, just
Okay.
a classic. Nobody can compare. Truly, her prose is out of this world. But I did read a really good book that I picked up at the library called The Prisoner of Zenda, and it was written, I think, in 1700. And it was just a good swashbuckling sort of story that I didn't expect to like because the language was so archaic that I was like, this is going to be hard to get through. But once I kind of got used to, and my mind kind of made that shift to a different dialect of English, a much older one, it was such a good read.
Okay. For those who don't know, what's the meaning of archaic?
Just like language that's very old or not
Okay.
used anymore.
What
So old.
mythology are you currently reading right now, like currently?
Lots of mermaid mythology. I've been
Oh.
doing my homework on different cultural interpretations of mermaid lore because there's so many vast different perspectives on it, depending on what country you're looking at.
Oh, okay. But so I'm assuming that's your major too, in English literature?
It's not. I actually just read and research for fun. It's a lifelong hobby of mine. So yeah, not for school.
Oh, so natural question, what's your major then?
I actually majored in sign language interpreting and
Oh.
ASL. So that's my regular job. I'm a sign language interpreter at CSUN.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's quite interesting to be honest, because I was assuming you were an English major.
Yeah, it's just it's a skill that I've developed outside of school. Obviously, I did a lot of reading and writing for school, and I
Hmm.
had always a love and an interest in English and some really great teachers who taught me about the structure of it for writing. So I think I did pursue a facet of it in school, but my academics, as far as what I studied, was deaf culture and sign language.
Hmm. That's funny. Not even a minor in English or
I actually minored in psychology.
oh, okay, I'm not gonna ask anything anymore.
All
Okay.
over the place.
Okay. No, it's actually fine. You get a lot of perspective. Jackson, did
I
you
guess.
read other fantasy books?
Yes, I was really obsessed with Fablehaven as a kid. It's not as popular, but the books are about this thick.
Oh.
Um, but they were just I couldn't even tell you the plot of them off the top of my head. All I remember was how it felt to read them and just that every page what was being described was an image I could never have conjured for myself. It was just pure fantasy, like something I could never have conceptualized in my own brain as a kid. So I was really, really taken with those. And I remember how colorful they were too. But I should reread those. Those were fun.
Hmm. For those who are interested, can you name the whole book if you and also the author?
Yes, it's called Fablehaven. The series is called Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. And I think there's 5 books. I don't remember what the first one is called, but it's green and it has
Mhm.
a frog on the front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a frog statue or something like that. Yeah,
Oh,
I do know that it's kind of a basic premise of 2 siblings or maybe cousins move into the house of their grandparents, and one rainy day they start exploring the attic upstairs. And while they're up there, they find this book of fables, and as they're reading it, things start happening to them in real life that they're reading about in the novel. So that's
yeah.
basically how it goes.
I don't think there's any movie adaptation made, right?
No, unfortunately, but I always thought it would be a great one.
Yeah, I think that whole genre died out in I guess late 2000s.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, hot take. I like Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Okay, since we are on Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, I really want to talk about the difference between the books and the adaptations.
Oh
So,
yeah, let's do it.
so the
So there's 2 adaptations, right? There's the
yeah.
movie that came out in 2010, and then there's the TV show that's being made right now. The TV show is definitely a better adaptation than the movies, without question. I think that's pretty universally agreed, at least among fans. I think the general population doesn't really care if they didn't read the books, then what's it to them? But the movies for what they were great nostalgia. As a huge fan at the time, I was just excited that it was getting adapted into a movie. Was it the most faithful to the book? Absolutely not, but it was entertaining. So I still have fondness for it. Yes, I
Yeah,
think the
honest.
TV show format is allowing them more time to get into more of the nuance and more of what happens chapter by chapter, page by page, where the movie, the pacing was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, all three parts. Is it any one of your favorites or no?
Of the movies,
Yeah.
um, I have to say I will always have um like a guilty pleasure for the first one because I remember 2009 when it was first being announced it was coming out, and little me, having just read all of the books, was so excited. And I went to see it for my birthday with like my two best friends at the time. So the experience of watching Lightning Thief for the first time is very precious to me, and I get to relive that every time I watch it. So, you know, accuracy be damned. I really liked the experience.
Okay, I think there would be one thing that even though you're looking at nostalgia and everything, you'll still be like, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't know why they changed that. Is there one thing in that movie that you still were like, eh? Or even when you were a kid, you were like, eh?
It was a specific scene that got adapted into the show. So I'm less burned about it because I have it now. But there was a 10-year long span that I really wanted to see this scene where Percy and Annabeth, the two main characters, go to this like water park of the gods, this theme park of the gods that's abandoned. And there's this really cool scene where they go through this like abandoned tunnel, water tunnel ride. Chaos ensues. There's mechanical spiders everywhere attacking them, and it's all being broadcast live to the Olympian gods up on Olympus. And it was just the craziest plot that I could have read as a kid, and it didn't make it into the movie. So I was I was really disappointed by that.
Yeah, it must be. I don't know what you're missing, but yeah, okay. What about Harry Potter's though?
Okay, so the truth is I've only read the first three Harry Potter books, but I've watched the movies upwards of 50 times. I normally watch the whole series like twice a year.
Hmm.
So I can't speak much on the books, which I know people enjoy, but I've really studied those movies.
Okay. No, I guess this one, and it's on four. It's the fourth one, so I don't think you can comment on that. There's this one difference that's a meme at this point, where in the books, when the Goblet of Fire, the Harry's name is chosen, and when we go in the tunnel, in the book it's mentioned that Dumbledore silently goes to Harry Potter and takes him aside and asks him, "Did you put your name?" And in the movie, he just rushed at him and just starts screaming at him and everything.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest meme and the funny thing that came out of the book
Yes,
and the
I've,
movie.
I've definitely seen that meme.
And that was really funny though, because it was a lot of things. I was watching a couple of videos by Cinefix, and they said one thing that in the books, a lot of times, ever since after fourth, it's more of they give Harry a lot more what's the word? Like independence in a way, like but they missed out they cut out a lot of chunky parts. And even though, okay, what's your favorite movie adaptation?
I would have to say The Hunger Games. I really feel
Really?
like they nailed those in the best way that books could be adapted to screen.
Yeah, but I was kind of iffy about because as a person of color myself, in the books, she's olive skinned.
You're absolutely right for that. That is so, and that's a consistent issue with the Hunger Games casting is that they will put every single part of the book in there besides meeting the physical descriptions that were put down on the paper. And there's several characters who were at least alluded to be people of color and then were completely washed in the movie. So that is a very fair critique.
Yeah.
I, I didn't read the books, but my sister's a big fan of Twilight, and she really lives and dies by those movies. So there must be something there.
They're
Not your
good
cup.
movies. I don't know what to say because I was in school by that time, I guess. Not in high school, but yeah.
Mhm.
And the girls were crazy about those books and the movies, and I watched the movie, and it was just I couldn't. I was like,
Yeah, vampire stories have never really been my cup of tea, but it seemed like they were really popular with book fans, so they must have done something right.
yeah, I don't know. I think the one of the books that was kind of good, and the movie was it was like Interview with the Vampire. I was That was like a really nuanced take on the whole vampire genre and everything and how it affects them. But yeah, I don't know.
See, I didn't even know that was a book. I've seen that movie, but I didn't know it was based on a book.
You seen it?
Yes. Yes, I've seen Nosferatu. I've seen the Dracula adaptations. I'm a big Halloween and Universal Monsters fan, so I'm a big Dracula girl.
Okay. What about the Wolfman?
The Wolfman, okay, I read Beowulf for school, and I thought that that was the Wolfman, so I imagined him while I was reading it, and it did make me acquire a new love for Wolfman because I feel like he's underrated in the
Yeah.
monsters.
Yes, he is. And also Beowulf, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a different story, right? That's a Norse poetry, a
Yes.
poem?
Yep.
Okay.
And it wasn't even wolf like WOLF. It was WULF. And not even the word wolf, but my brain heard wolf and immediately thought Wolfman, and I pictured him the entire time I was reading.
Okay, and do you know there's I think, what did you love the movie adaptation too?
I didn't see it.
Oh,
There's a Beowulf movie?
yeah, it's an animated movie.
Wow. I have to write this down.
Okay, okay. Angelina Jolie is in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an animated movie. I guess the mocap movies, one of the only mocap movies out there, like
Oh,
one of the
okay.
really early ones. So the animation is a bit shoddy, but
I like that. I like our roots, our old, more again, archaic approach
yeah.
to making movies. It's kind of interesting to me.
Like what?
I like stop motion. I really like black and white movies too. Like I had a big Charlie Chaplin phase in high school for some reason where I really just loved watching like black and white soundless films.
Okay, that's interesting. What about so did you watch the original, like the 1940s Universal monster movies or no?
Yes, yes, I have.
Bad. Okay.
Yes, yes, the old special effects, I live for it.
Yes. And some of them were really good, like really, really good.
hmm
And some of them hold up really good, and some of them are just like, have you heard the Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Attack of Killer Tomatoes.
Yes, they're classics for a reason. It was camp was popular for a reason.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, like, first, before starting the novel, what you started writing?
Um, so I used to just write short stories as a kid, whatever came to my head or whatever I thought sounded cool. But I started writing books in high school, and it actually started with fan fiction. I was writing One Direction fan fiction, and my first one that I ever wrote quickly evolved into like it wasn't about One Direction anymore. I just really loved writing, and it was the first attempt I'd made at writing a full story. So I became obsessed with that process, and I remember getting home from school. It was like as soon as I finished my homework, I wanted to get back to my computer and write. Or if I didn't have my computer, I was writing paragraphs and paragraphs by hand in my notebook, and I fell in love with like developing ideas and realizing that I had the ability to put them down on paper the way that I wanted them to go. Because there's so many other skills that I wish I had. I'm like, I have a picture in my head, but I can't draw or something like that. And writing was like a very satisfying avenue for me to put my thoughts down on paper and see them realized the way that I wanted them to be.
Okay, did you also dealt with a little bit of horror or no?
I did start writing a mystery slash horror book that I wrote. I've been writing, I suppose, for like 8 or 9 years now. Every time I revisit it, I change parts of it because it's not a genre I'm as familiar with writing. So I keep like adjusting parts of it. But I do love the story for what it's worth.
Did you publish it anywhere online, Wattpad or anything?
I did. I used to self-publish on Wattpad. I did not that the mystery horror one is still in my Google Drive because I never finished it. I only uploaded or published books that were complete, so that one is still in my archives.
Okay, so question, do you read horror books too or no?
I'm trying to get into it because in my series, it's about mermaids and it's about fantasy, but I want there to be a maturation from the fantasy books I read as a kid into something maybe a little darker and a little more true to life because the story I'm telling is about mermaids and it's fun and it's adventure, but it's also about themes of colonialism and, violence. So, between species, between man and mermaid, man and man, things like that. So I do want to familiarize myself with some different textures of reading because I want to diversify my story so it's not just, oh, it's a mermaid book, so it's all bubbles and rainbows. There's other things to it as well.
Did any of this inspired by any book that you read?
I would say it's probably more inspired by movies or things that I've seen. I can't think of a lot of books outside of there. I would say there's a lot of Percy Jackson influence in the idea of man versus mythical. That's a very like common theme in Percy Jackson. Um, but as far as like colonialism, imperialism, power struggles, all that kind of stuff, I think is just true to life, things that I read about in school and didn't appreciate how they ended. And I wanted to write a different ending for so many of these populations. So I think that's reality was more of what inspired that aspect of it than anything that I read.
But where did you get the idea from?
For my book.
Or inspiration, yeah?
Yeah, it was actually on a vacation to Japan when I went to visit my sister. Um, it was just such a magical and an inspiring place to be. I feel like everybody says that about Japan when they go there, but um, for whatever reason, the creative juices were flowing, and my sister was reading out loud to me a fantasy series at the time. And I don't know if I should name it or not, but as she was reading it to me, I was thinking, I could do this so much better. This is just not doing the genre justice. If you're going to write a fantasy, you're not delivering it. And so then I thought, why have I never tried to write a fantasy before? I love fantasy. Prior to that, I'd only written realistic fiction, the one horror mystery book. So I was like, let's do a complete pivot and try a historical fantasy novel set in the 1800s using old English dialect.
Okay.
That's how we got there.
Okay. And what's so the inspiration for Old English, where did that come from?
I truly feel like that every, or at least the best mermaid adaptations I've seen or stories about mermaids revolve around Europeans. There's not many like American mermaid movies. Like you have Pirates of the Caribbean or lots of the lore of mermaid mythology is from Europe and from that hemisphere. So I think that it felt like the most authentic place to talk about that since that's where a lot of their lore is rooted. And it was the easiest for me to visualize them interacting, you know, in that setting.
Okay, out of curiosity, you have done a lot of research on mermaids, right?
Yes.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. Are they inspired by sirens or other Greek mythology or
Yeah. So it depends which culture's interpretation you're taking on it. So in some legends, they're like evolved from things like manatees or like eels, and they were just a natural progression in the evolutionary process. Other ones say that they're an evolution from the sirens of the ancient Greece and Rome and things like that, or more closely related to fish, like not mermaids in the traditional aspect that we think of them as half person, half fish. They're more fish, but have more of an anthropomorphic human form. So it just depends whose version of it you're reading. But yeah, they're all fascinating to me, all the origins.
okay. I want to do a little bit deep dive on the mermaid mythology, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, did you ever find out about the origin? of it? Like where it originally started, what culture originally started it?
The oldest ones that I've traced back are obviously ancient Greece. Like the Odyssey was writing about mermaids before anyone, but
Hmm.
um, I would say that's one of the more popularized, like ancient texts that we have. But so many African cultures have historical iterations of mermaids, specifically like Zimbabwe and Tanzania have deeply ingrained in their culture the idea that mermaids have existed even prehistorically and have often like mingled with humans, and they have a belief that their witch doctors or their healing partisans in their cultures were blessed by mermaids and like given the gifts to do what they did, whether they were prophets or whatever role they played in their tribe. If they had some unique talent, it was often said that they were granted it by mermaids.
Hmm. Interesting. So okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but most Greece and other cultures, they see him as in a positive light or a negative light.
I would say positive for the most part, overwhelmingly positive.
Okay, so why do you think it's a little bit negative when it's portrayed in the movies?
Yeah, I think that nautical interpretations of mermaids from seafaring people, from fishermen, from pirate lore, a lot of them have presented mermaids as antagonists of the sea. And obviously, we all know the story of luring sailors to their deaths and pulling them to the bottom of the ocean and sucking out their souls, all of those interpretations, which I'm still a fan of because,
Okay.
like I say, I like the beauty of it and the ethereal nature of mermaids, but I also like the grit and the way that they're personified to, you know, not take any abuse in some stories. And I think that comes from uh, the Greek interpretation of them as the sirens. The sirens were notoriously evil, whereas like mermaids, I think, kind of branched off from that into this more pleasant iteration of what we knew to be a siren.
Because do you think there's a cultural reason for that?
Absolutely. I think that many voyages in the development of mermaid lore were taken prematurely, and many sailors who thought themselves qualified were finding themselves shipwrecked. And perhaps a more amusing explanation as to why they didn't succeed in their endeavor was some mythical force that had, sabotaged their vessel or something like that. So there was also just a rich culture of storytelling in nautical history, in seafaring history, with the cultural exchanges happening around the world. Like one of the consistent threads that we had to share was stories. So I feel like the nature of seafaring folk was to just make things up, and it was a fun way to describe what might have been a kind of boring job.
Yeah. And also, as always, just blame
Right,
women, right?
exactly. When in
Yeah.
doubt, people will believe that a bloodthirsty half fish half woman destroyed your ship.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Kraken myth was not as popular, but even though that makes a more sense, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, right. There's so many other sea monsters in mythology that I don't know why sirens get singled out so much.
yeah, because again, it's to relate to the real world, like mermaid, don't go near her.
Right,
Yeah, and which is funny because sea monsters makes more sense because there used to be a large whales and large
right.
squid.
Yeah, leviathans and all of those kinds of beasts of the deep. I would be much more scared of them.
Yeah, but yeah, they were like, okay, that's fun. Which interpretation of mermaids do you like the most?
So I spent a lot of time while I was growing up in Seattle. That's where my family is from, and the Fisherman's Wharf and that whole scene is very dedicated to its mermaid origins and mermaid culture. Starbucks started in out of Washington and things like that. So
Hmm.
I think being a Pacific Northwest girl, my allegiance is to the way that I learned about mermaids from being in Seattle, which again was that gentler, more nurturing image of being kind of the helpers of the sea and these kind of humble servants of all sea creatures and to humanity and all of those kinds of images. So
Okay, without spoiling anything, what they will be in your book?
That's a really great question. And the answer, hmm, the
Read the
answer,
book.
the answer is kind of a all of the above because I really wanted to create, first of all, I wanted to pay homage to all of the iterations of mermaids that have impacted me and my interest in them and my love for them my whole life. So I couldn't narrow it down to just one. So it's kind of a conglomeration of each of them. But I also, from a cultural standpoint, wanted to avoid homogenizing them and suggesting that within the entire ocean, every single mermaid is exactly like this. So I saw an opportunity to expand on, well, the mermaids in the northern hemisphere, closer to the Arctic, are maybe deep sea mermaids, and the mermaids of Argentina versus Venezuela versus Zimbabwe, they're all their respective cultures of mermaids, equally as diverse as humanity is. So I think I Frankensteined a little bit from every story that I've read to create the world of mermaids that exists in my book.
Where, okay, in the book, uh the topic of environment and all the waste and all those things came up, but no.
Holy cow, yes.
Okay, okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
We will leave it at that because I was like, okay, if we are making anything about the sea, we have to talk about the no, trash island, treasure
We
island.
must. We must.
Yeah, yeah, because it's the most horrible thing.
Yes, especially because the book takes place in 1804, so it's kind of before we fully royally screwed the ocean.
Hmm.
So the idea is kind of a preventative sort of measure, but it's very much addressed that humanity is killing the ocean.
Yeah, before that, I guess they used to hunt whales for whale oil, right?
Yes, and blubber for warmth and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, still bad.
Hmm.
Yeah. Any other like do you took inspiration from the Poseidon myth?
Oh, yes. Because again, with the Percy Jackson influence, I think that the realm of gods and goddesses is something that's always appealed to me. So there are deities in my book who have influence over the ocean. The series is called The Children of Serene,
Hmm.
uh, and Serene being the goddess of all merfolk. So I do think I took inspiration on her character from a lot of the Poseidon myths that I read as far as her power and her governance, and then
Hmm.
also her kind of the way that gods tend to be indifferent to the issues of mortals. So
Hmm.
that kind of air of being all powerful but not really feeling the motivation to do anything about it because you're going to live forever. So what's it to you?
Yeah. Uh if I put my 2 cents, do you care about ants?
About what?
Ants?
Ants like the bugs?
Yeah. If they're living there, technically you are way powerful and stronger and everything. And
Oh, I see what you mean. Like, do I protect ants personally?
yeah, like in your house there's a lot of bugs and you don't care.
It
And
depends on
technically
the
you're
bug.
really powerful.
Yeah, it depends on the bug. I wouldn't say I'm like a spider rescuer, but
Yeah.
a reflex, I'm like, kill it.
Yeah. See? Because it's ugly.
Right, and it doesn't belong here. What's it doing in my house?
Okay. Yeah. So for the book and in general, what mythologies that you read?
I've read by far the most Greek mythology, but I've also dabbled in some Egyptian and Norse mythology as well that I enjoyed.
Okay, I really want to talk about the Egyptian one. So
For
any
sure.
nuggets that you want to share?
So I think what I really like about Egyptian mythology is that it's unique in a lot of ways. The imagery of it is unique to how most cultures portray gods and goddesses, but also they have a lot of deities that don't have counterparts in other mythologies, which I really like. Like there's a goddess of poison that is just like we don't have one of those in Greek mythology or in Norse mythology. There's You have like Ra and Osiris and ones that have equivalents in other mythologies. but I think it's really cool that there's, oh wait, I'm gonna think of the name. It's Serket. Serket is like the scorpion goddess, and she's the one that can control poison and things like that, but like specifically venom. And I'm like, we don't have anything like that. So,
Hmm. Any other gods or stories that you want to share?
um, oh, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, but I think it's Khnum. It's Khnum, and
Oh, Khanum.
Khanum.
Yeah, Khanum.
Amazing. That one I really like because it has somewhat of an equivalent in Greek mythology, but the outcome of his myth and his realm that he governs is, in my opinion, a better ending, just story to story. So in Greek mythology, we have Prometheus and the fire that basically forged humanity. How humans were said to be made from clay, fashioned in an image, and then given life. Same idea with Khanum, is it?
Hmm. Khanum.
Khanum.
Yeah, yeah, Khanum.
Okay. Yeah, so he's like this ram-headed creator god, basically like what God would be in Christianity, like who invented humanity. But he did it on like a potter's wheel from clay that came from the Nile. And it's just so like uniquely Egyptian in its craft and in its imagery that I feel like I got a much better feeling about the birth of humanity from that myth than from the Prometheus myth. So that one really stuck with me.
Hmm. And is there any myth about the mermaids in Egyptian mythology or no?
I haven't really looked into it, but that would be an awesome one to explore because I've kind of just explored regions thus far that are like coastal,
Hmm.
but I would love to read about some other ones for sure. I can never have too many mermaid myths.
Yes, absolutely. What about Norse? Is it the same as Greek or Roman?
So, no, and that was like a misconception for me because I thought that Greco-Roman and Norse, for whatever reason, were the same body of mythologies, just kind of in different, more of like a regional thing. But Norse mythology is completely unique, where Greek and Roman kind of each facet of it has a counterpart for each other within Greek and Roman mythology. Norse has not only gods that govern different things than Greek gods do, but more of a hierarchical system than the Greek and Roman system like ever had. So there was a lot more structure to it that made it very interesting to read because other like deitic systems are so chaotic. It's just kind of all over the place. There was so much structure in Norse mythology that I felt like I understood it a lot better.
Yeah, like what?
Like you have Odin, who's like the all father, who I guess would be Zeus in Greek Roman mythology, but he has every countenance of a father and a god, like everything that stems from him. He's not messy like Zeus is, or like
Okay.
Jupiter is. Like, he's very structured. He when he says something, he sticks to it, and like that's the law. You have Thor, the god of thunder, and like this protector of mankind, where Zeus, thunder and lightning guy, couldn't have given less of a crap about humans or other gods. Like, there's so much duty bound to the Norse gods that I feel an actual respect for them. Where Greek and Roman gods, I'm just like, they're too messy. They haven't earned my respect as a mortal. I don't know if I would have worshipped them.
The
Yeah,
Southeast Asia and Hindu gods and all those things, and they have a lot of similarities too.
hmm I haven't, but I did find a book at the bookstore called City of the Plague God, and it is about Hindu mythology and Hindu gods in that one. So I'm very excited to read that one.
Yeah, because
and it's more about the older region, and it's much more older, and it's kind of connects with everything. So yeah, I would recommend learning about it, and you'll be happily surprised, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. I just love a good story,
Yeah.
truly.
Apart from the inspiration, there's obviously when in your book you said you want to mention colonialism and everything, and it's that history is so messy, and we have factual things here. Like what part that you do want to incorporate?
Yeah, so Again, anyone who knows me knows that I am not a history enthusiast. When I said that it was a lane diversion to go into historical fantasy, I meant that because I am not a history. That being said, I had to do my homework before committing to writing a historical fantasy novel. Um, so it was very important to me that the story be grounded in our real worlds because I think what makes mermaid legends so interesting in the first place is that they're often contrived, like many myths, out of a need to explain something. When people ask, like, oh, how did the trees get here? Like, there's a myth for that. How does this part of the ocean work? There's a myth for that. You know what I mean? So, so I think that mythology hits harder when you feel like it connects to something in your real world. So I wanted it to be historically accurate. If it's in 1804 and we're sailing across the sea, it has to take a realistic amount of time to get there. We have to explain what the ship looks like and what kind of mechanisms and tools we were working with, like to really world build the humanity part of it so that I can have fun with the mermaid part because that's the fantasy and I can do what I want. But I want it to be grounded in a world that we could conceive as existing.
Yeah, and also that part is really messy, ugly, and dark.
Yes. Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
which is also why I want to highlight it in my story.
Mm. Is it a particular event that you are heavily leaning towards, or is it the whole era?
You know, it's so it takes place in what is now French Guiana, but is was previously the colony of Burbis in South America. And I wanted to choose a region that I wasn't familiar with because I know so much about like colonial struggles in Africa, in America, in Mexico, and like Middle America regions. I didn't know much about that area, and I first and foremost felt a desire to educate myself, but also just to see what other shapes it took. I feel like we learned a lot about British colonialism in school, or Spanish. Those were in French. Those were probably the big three. So like, who else was out here taking land? And so I looked into the Netherlands, and they had occupied this colony of Burbis. And upon doing research about the landscape of it and the setting, I was like, this seems like a good place to kind of root this story, not just in the first book, but like throughout the series. It's kind of a pivotal location. And it was being fought with between the Dutch and British at that time. So I had to do my homework to make sure that this setting that will be integral throughout the whole series is historically accurate. And the people who read historical fantasy for the history won't be like, that's not what was happening at that time.
Yeah, and also I guess Belgium and other European countries, Portuguese, obviously, they were also colonizing people, just for the fun
Right,
of it, I guess.
right. Yeah. And there's so much of a cultural aspect that I wanted to integrate about that because being a Black person, like colonialism is just something that obviously impacted my entire culture and like where our roots are. And without telling another slavery story, I wanted to force some perspective of that just through a slightly different lens.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, like
like
it was very important to me that the nobles in my story, like the main nobles, are Black. So I was like, we will have Black nobility in this story. I don't care how I have to explain it, but that will be a key marker of this book.
yeah, at least yeah, if it gets adaptation in the future, and I don't know what they're gonna do, but at least in the book you can put it there. And apart from that, like any other historical events that you researched and you thought it would be cool to put in there by any chance, if you want to mention.
Um, yeah, the again with the situation in Burbis, it becomes a originally I imagined it being the setting just for the first book because in the other three books I imagined we're going to three other key settings. But Burbis specifically became like this through line for all four books because of what I read was going on there historically with the governance happening there and specifically the division between Dutch and French are kind of both here, but only one of us is making the laws, but you're in charge of this or that. So it seemed like a very messy and complicated sort of story, which I love to read. So it became like much more important of an event that I was like, oh no, we can't just go to these three locations in the next book. Like we have to keep coming back to Burbus and we have to keep coming back to this. Because I think the story there in and of itself, as it was unfolding in actual history, just had me at the edge of my seat. So without giving away too much, I'm really looking forward to developing that part more.
Yeah, and I was literally, well, for me personally, apart from colonialism, there's World War, the first and second, and the aftermath is what I'm interested in. Have you touched upon it or no?
World Wars, no. Haven't haven't. And you know what? This is the thing where I say like I'm not very skilled with history. I don't even know when the First World War was. Like
Oh,
what
okay.
year was that?
Honestly, I don't know either. I guess 1907?
Okay, so it was late, late, right? That's what
Yeah.
I thought. I was
Yes.
like, I know before I wrote my book, I was like, wait, this wasn't post-war time, right? I remember that was one of the first questions I answered because that would obviously have huge implications on every part of the story. So I knew there wasn't a war, but I don't know when the war was.
Yeah, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to have my brother-in-law read my book because he is a history guy and he knows his stuff. So I can't wait for him to give me some pointers.
Oh, okay. Apart from him, any other people that you are looking forward for your book?
Oh yeah, I mean, my dad truly being the sole investor in my personality as a writer, I can't wait for him to read start to finish the story. He has been kind of reading it along the way, like the very first draft as I was writing it, but it's evolved so much since then that I can't wait for him to see the end results. So
Hmm. So what is your process is exactly when you started writing it? Do you have a through line or anything?
I started with an outline. That was the very first thing I did was outline the book top to bottom. And then my approach was, okay, let's take it one bullet at a time and then kind of develop the spaces in between as I go. Because I always start with a big like character web and I develop everyone's character first and their motivations and things rather than let the plot points drive the process because the plot is subject to change at any time. No one is an expert on the plot, not even the author. Don't let anyone tell you any different. It's false. But if the characters are stable, then you can make your plot work with whatever you've built there. Um, so I started with one outline, and the book that came out of it was something completely different than what the outline probably would have intended. But that's just how writing goes and rather than fighting it I'm leaning into as the story develops what feels more natural because as I'm writing it I'm getting to know the characters better, I'm getting to know the story better, so it the only way is up. So I reached an ending that was the ending that I outlined and realized this is not the ending of this book, this is not how this is supposed to end. And so then the rest of kind of books 2, 3, and 4 came, and that was that.
Yeah, so dumb question, right? But so the research comes into play before the outline or after the outline? Or does research change the outline?
Maybe during. Yeah, I think the research changes the outline, right? I have like a list of this, that, and the other thing happens. Then I have to go and supplement what would have been historically accurate to make those things happen, or maybe adjust what has to happen because of what would have been historically accurate.
Oh, okay. While writing the characters, do you take inspiration for some, obviously you do, from real life people?
I would say yes, traditionally, but because this was a fantasy, I think I really stepped outside of basing it on anything that felt too true to life for me because I wanted to explore different boundaries with these characters. And if I immediately bind them or consider them as inspired by this person, I'll kind of limit myself in that realm. And I wanted all the characters to be boundless. So I really tried to, um, honestly, I based them all off of colors instead of people. That was my approach because I needed something to ground each of them. So I wrote in an outline of like different colors that I found fascinating, and then developed like based on this color, this person would have these personality traits and such and so on.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. And in a way, like when you see something happen, does it ever think does you ever feel like, okay, I know it has to reach there, but I have no idea how will it reach there. Does that make sense from point A to B?
Yes, frequently, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, that
Okay.
happens. That happens all the time. It's something that I've had to get comfortable with in the creative process because it happens a lot.
Okay. Do you have a device or is this just a MacGuffin that you use or whatever?
Yeah, like I at first, so so being that this is my first novel I'm trying to publish, integrity was a huge deal to me, and I wanted every single idea to be mine and like something that was like, oh, it just came to me so easily. So when I'm struggling to get from like this part to this part, I'm like, okay, but what do I put in there? I feel like disingenuous if I get inspiration from something else. So like I'll be watching TV or watching a movie or reading another book and read maybe a scene in there that inspires me and I'm like, "Oh, this would actually be a good way to get from point A to point B, adapting it to my world and to my characters." And I felt so disingenuous about that at first, but reading it all together and seeing how it was integrated, it's like, yes, every work and piece of art is inspired by art that you intake. So, you know, getting from point A to point B becomes much easier when I opened myself up to the fact that I can be inspired by anything, whether it's in my real life or a book or a movie or something like that. So it was a hard hurdle at first, but my process was just like be open to anything, be open to inspiration anywhere, and it would come eventually.
Okay, that's a pretty good rule. One more thing that I really struggle on is the dialogue.
Yeah, I always say that I play a little movie in my head, and I think as an avid reader and TV watcher and movie and film enjoyer, that's very easy for me to do. So if I just close my eyes and kind of start with a seed of dialogue or maybe one line or something, it'll just start unfolding from there. And then my only hope at that point is that my fingers can type fast enough to keep up with the scene as it's unfolding with my brain. Um, but sometimes what one tip that I learned in this process was in trying to do that, I'm trying to add in all the dialogue tags that are necessary in a text rather than the movie playing in my head. You have to say that he turned around. You have to say that he blinked and that these feelings are being exchanged or whatever it might be. So that can interrupt the process of trying to get dialogue down in a way that feels natural, in a way that flows. So sometimes what I've started doing is just typing the dialogue like line by line, boom, 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 like a script, and then I'll go back in and add in the in between parts, the nuances of what was not being said, and that's been a much better process to getting smoother, more natural dialogue for me.
Hmm. Make it less exposition-y and a less oh, that's just happened or this is happening because that happens a lot in books. Because
Yeah, I I feel like one of the advantages of writing in third person POV, which is what my book is written in. So it's like third person omniscient. It's no I, me, mine. It's, his, hers. Like it's narrowed to someone's perspective, but it's like an omniscient view of it. Um, so I feel like that helps with furthering things along because it's so the POV is called third person limited. So you're limited to one person's brain at a time, but you can see everything that they're seeing. So I think that helps kind of trim the fat of expositing because we're already in someone's mind. So we're kind of just reading an internal dialogue, a thought process, rather than a narration of every single thing that's happening, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And sometimes people switch POVs, and sometimes, even though it's third, you switch to someone's POV, even though, uh, yeah, it makes sense in a way, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you could personally, for me as a reader and a writer, I hate head hopping. I hate like in one paragraph I'm in someone's mind and the next I'm in someone else's. Unless it has to be made very clear and done very well. Otherwise, I get confused very easily. So I'll do like a whole chapter in one person's mind, and we won't be in another person's head until there's a scene break or a page break, a chapter break or something to signal like, okay, we're moving on now.
Okay. Any movie inspiration for your books?
Oh yes, let me pull up my list because I learned in the editing process that you have to develop a list of comps for when you submit to an agent. They want to know what your work is comparable to, and they don't particularly enjoy book comparisons like of other books because comparing one book to another is just difficult. But if you say lovers of this movie or this TV show will enjoy my book, then they they get a better idea. So I've actually been keeping a list. So right away, Road to El Dorado is one of the one of the
Okay.
principal influences in terms of have you seen it?
The whole I don't remember the whole thing, but I have seen it.
Yeah, it's an animated movie and it's one of my absolute favorite movies because it's about adventure, it's about exploration. These two kind of idiot peasant guys go on this voyage to El Dorado. They stumble upon the city of gold. Chaos ensues, and I think that pretty heavily influenced my pacing and like my approach to telling a story. In like moments of peril, there will always be some one-liner or comic relief sort of moment that it's like we're on pins and needles, but like that was kind of funny, and then we're on pins and needles again, and that kind of pacing in that movie really inspired my work. Let's see. Oh, Pirates of the Caribbean is
Okay.
another one. 'Cause I loved those movies as a kid and the imagery of it. Like I have such clear images of each Pirates of the Caribbean movie, even if I don't remember the plot points specifically or when we got to Tortuga or whatever, because it took 5 movies to get there. But I remember so clearly like the imagery and the costuming. So and like the dialect. There was so many like locations they went to in each movie that there was Caribbean accents, there was South American accents. Like it was so sonically diverse that that was something I wanted to incorporate in my book too, and then the visuals as much as possible in text.
Yeah, which one is your favorite? The move all from all the
Stranger
parts.
Tides. That's the one with the mermaid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a mixed bag because it was both like a positive image of a mermaid and also the classic, the killing all the people version of mermaids there. That was nice. But
No, it's actually funny you mention it because it's I mentioned the story of it in my book because I wanted to pay mention to Jack Sparrow, who was based on a real pirate called Captain John Rackham, or known as Calico Jack.
hmm,
So I had to put that story in my book because I always loved that Captain Jack Sparrow was based off of a real pirate.
yeah, and it's amazing and how they made how they played how he played him. It was amazing too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
eh,
great.
yeah, and also one right. You have inspiration from El Dorado, Road to El Dorado, and Pirates of the Caribbean. All of these movies and books, all the mythology, it's overwhelmingly positive. Uh, the question still comes to my mind: how are you gonna how are you gonna balance with with the grit and all the dark events?
Yeah. So I think again through the POV of the characters that I've chosen, like centering characters of color in a story, you're forced to, and speaking through their POV, especially during that time period, you're forced to acknowledge the grim setting that these events are taking place in because we're in the head of a Black queer woman in the 1800s. Like that's something that we have to talk about. So I feel like the events grounding it satisfy a reader's need for like adventure and friendship and action and like all those kinds of things. But then the internal dialogue portions of it or some of the more intimate moments between characters expose like the very real part of it that's like, hey, we're also living in a post-colonial world and we are people of color and we're queer and things like that, cultures that have existed for as long as humanity has, but have not been centered in that conversation. So choosing the characters outright as being diverse, that is integrated in the setting that we're in. Like all of that has to be acknowledged as well. So when I asked my beta readers to identify the main themes of the book, the ones that I got, I was expecting like adventure, exploration, curiosity, and I got like family, grief, self-acceptance, like themes like that. I was like, okay, so the heavier tones of it did hit and come across, even though we had a lot of fun and we had a lot of laughs too.
Mm. That's a really good that's really hard to do. Let me just say it because it's really hard to tonally keep it consistent when you're dealing with such heavy topics in a setting which is really, really fun, if I dare say, fun and adventurous. So that's really cool. Like I haven't the only book that comes into my mind is Lord of the Flies. And
Flies.
that book is really dark, and it takes the treasure adventure and it just turns it over its head. But it's never fun. Like it's never fun. There's no fun in there.
Yes, that story is traumatizing in so many ways. And it is, yeah, under this kind of baby blanket of boys on an island and adventure, and then every page it just gets darker and darker.
Yeah. So one
And
question
same.
that I wanted to ask earlier. So when you're describing about your reading habits and everything, and you said it's fantasy and everything, but is it limited to the English part of the world, like where they speak English, or do you also read books like from Japan translated and obviously in other countries where they don't speak English?
Yeah, so I'm a lover of language, like truly a linguaphile through and through. I think it's a big part of the reason that I love books and love writing and reading because I love the formation of language. It's why I'm an interpreter. I love different languages. So I'm always taking recommendations for books that have been translated into English. Um, I read oh my gosh, what's it called? Now I'm forgetting the name of it. Have you read The Alchemist?
Yes, Paulo Coelho.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I
Yes.
have, but not entirely. I don't remember most of it. Let me just say.
I want to say it was originally written in either Portuguese or Spanish. But that's one of my favorites because I felt like a lot of the original translation was actually in the text. And I think so often we try to prioritize the target language
Hmm.
over preserving what was said in the source language. And I remember while I was reading The Alchemist, I was like, I don't think the goal for this sentence was make this intelligible to speakers. I think it was preserve the intent of what this message was originally. And I remember feeling that so often as I was reading it that I was like, yeah, I could read this and say like this doesn't make sense in English for a book that's supposed to be translated into English, but like I kind of appreciate that it wasn't. It made me think a little more.
Yeah. Any Asian authors that you read?
Um, Not any that I can specifically say like the source language wasn't English. I think they were probably either originally written in English by Asian authors or I just didn't know that they were translated. So nothing comes to mind immediately.
Oh, okay. If I give a recommendation, it would be if I recommend something, it would be Kafka on the Shore.
Can you spell that?
Kafka on the shore. Kafka on the shore. Okay, and one more is 1000 Years of Solitude.
Oh, I've heard of this. Someone else recommended this to me. I think it's on my to be read, but I'll write it down
Yeah.
again. That would actually be amazing to read before my second book, before I start sitting down to write that. So I will read that.
Yeah, so the first one is already published.
Hmm.
Oh, where can we find it? I'll put it in the link.
Sorry, I thought you were saying the first of these recommendations. My book is not yet published.
Okay, okay, okay.
Someday.
Okay,
I
yeah.
have I have this version here, the paper one that I printed. It's
Okay.
the only existing copy as of right now.
Yeah, you're still looking for editors or publishing publications?
Yes, so I'm going through my last polishing pass of it, just the last toppings here, and then I start shopping for an agent, shopping for representation, waiting for a publisher, all of that good stuff starts.
Okay, the whole series is Children of Serene, right? What's the first book's name?
The first book is called The Tales of Burbus, and it's
Oh,
Tales spelled with Tails.
oh, that's a good wordplay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mermaid Tales.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. Ah, that's a really good pun. I love a good pun. Yeah,
I
it
know.
sounds.
I myself when naming books two, three, and four, should they also be puns? Because I never write the title of the book down officially until it's completed, because I feel like I can't name something until I can look at it fully. But I've been wondering when I get to that point, should I keep the pun theme going?
Yeah, because yeah, you now you're committed, don't you
Right.
think? With the
Yes, it
first,
has to be interpreted two different ways. So if you just hear someone say it, you're not sure if they mean the tales as in stories or the tales as in fish tales,
fins, like
ponytails.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Finale should be finale.
Hmm.
I'm just spitballing here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hopefully we will. Okay, when should we reach back out to you to ask? Is it published yet?
I'm hoping to start really seriously shopping for an agent before the year's end. So ideally by sometime early next year, I have a prospect.
Okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
Oh, I was just saying that I'll begin seriously shopping for an agent within the next month or two, and then at that point it's just a waiting game. So I'm hoping by sometime early next year I would have a prospect of some sort that's taking shape,
Yeah,
something coming to fruition.
yeah, and I can see your cat.
Yep. It's time for their dinner, so they're getting restless.
Of course. Also, one more question. So you're gonna write the second book right after getting a publisher, right?
Um, I've already started writing it. To be perfectly honest with you, I've already started writing three and four as well. Just because, first of all, the ideas won't stop, and second of all, when I get a partnership with a publisher, I want them to know that I'm committed and that if they work with me, I have a whole series that I'm already developing. So the more that I have behind it to offer someone who's interested, the better.
No, okay. That's really cool. And before I let you go for the day, is there anything else do you want to mention?
Um, I'm first of all so flattered. Thank you, Lollipop, for thinking of
Mm.
me for this opportunity.
Go ahead.
It's such an to anyone who aspires to write any form of content. If your thing is poetry, if your thing is short stories, horror, realistic fiction, fantasy, whatever it may be, I encourage everyone to do it. Writing is as cliche it is, it's a gateway to another world, and I feel like engaging with that, whether it gets published or not, whether it's something you even think you're good at or not, is just a good practice to be in reflection and writing down thoughts and ideas. So anyone who's thinking about it, even if it's just a journal, get out a pen, start writing something down because your ideas are probably better than you think they are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Any recommendations, book recommendations?
Um, I, yes, because the movie is coming out next year, I think, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. And in anticipation for it, I would highly, highly recommend the original. I'm familiar with the original myth, but the book itself, I finally sat down and read. And the Odyssey is that story. It is that good.
Okay, so more reason to be excited about a new Christopher Nolan movie, right?
Yes, yes. Let the preamble leading up to the movie be reading the source material because I think it has the makings of a great adaptation. So going into it with the book knowledge would probably be good.
Okay. Any movie recommendations?
Um, no movie recommendations, but stay tuned for Percy Jackson season 2 coming in December on Disney Plus.
Okay, they're also making a Harry Potter series, by the
They
way.
sure are. Yeah, on HBO, right?
Yeah, HBO Max, if I'm
Hmm.
not wrong.
Yeah.
So there's that. And at the end, do you want to mention something?
Um, I'm really looking forward to investing in this process. I know it's going to be a long road ahead, but I'm hoping that you will find Tales of Burbis on a bookshelf near you someday.
Yeah, hopefully, amen.
Yes.
Right? Knock on the wood.
Yeah.
And also, I really thank you for coming here. It was really fun to talk to you, and for me, it was mostly it's your positive energy that kept me going, to be honest, because I really